The UN nuclear watchdog agency, the IAEA, says it has not detected any raised levels of radiation around nuclear sites that have been targeted by strikes in Israel and in Iran. On Thursday, we spoke with the head of that agency and began by asking him whether Iran's nuclear ambitions can be destroyed through military action.
Well, of course, there has already been a lot of damage done. Last year, 12-day war was, in that sense, quite effective. This time around, I think the focus of the campaign does not seem to be specifically the nuclear facilities, although there have been some hits in Natanz and Isvahan, and also at another place near Parchin, which used to be a facility more related to the weaponization efforts, but back in the early 2000s. So there has been some, but I would say they have been relatively marginal when you consider the overall nature of the military campaign so far. But so going back to your question, there has been a lot of impact on the program. One cannot deny that this has really rolled back the program considerably. But my impression is that once the military effort comes to an end, we will still inherit a number of major issues that have been at the center of all of this. One, most notably, the inventory of enriched uranium at 60%, which is very close to the degree you need to make a bomb. That is going to still be where it is, largely.
Under the rubble.
Under the rubble, and in some cases, no rubble, and somewhere under. And also, importantly, some facilities, infrastructure, equipment, which have most probably survived some of the attacks. Even they could be damaged, seriously damaged, but that is something that we will only be able to ascertain once our inspectors go back. So
let's talk about that. What I heard you say there is Iran had that nuclear weapons program that in 2003, according to U.S. intelligence, was halted. But as you know, there's this debate over whether Iran's nuclear program actually did have a weapons ambition. You were never quite able to say yes or no.
Well, because we are not analysts or people having opinions. We are the IAEA. So whenever we say something, it has to be based on actual inspection. And the thing is, and continues to be, one, yes, like you say, yes, we haven't seen a systematic program like the Ahmad plan with offices, people reporting to people, and an array of places where you are doing stuff. But there were many concerning things, many unanswered questions, and especially since 2019, 2020, when I became, more or less, when I became Director General, where, yes, in 2015, in 2016, when the JCPOA, the previous agreement, you remember?
The Obama-era nuclear.
Exactly. When that started to be applied, Iran was complying with a number of things, but we started seeing new stuff. We started seeing and getting new elements that gave rise to concerns, and we were talking about them with Iran. And then it came a point, very important point, when I said, you know, in view of this, I have to say that I'm no longer able to say that everything is in order.
Because you were finding uranium in places it wasn't supposed to be, because they weren't allowing you unfettered access. You couldn't say clearly one way or the other.
Exactly that.
So let's come back to that. According to what you did know and were able to declare in these IAEA reports, Iran had uranium enriched up to 60%. Weapons grade is 90, as I understand it.
Yeah.
And if that material remains now in Iran after combat ends, will it still have nuclear capabilities if it has the enriched material and the centrifuges?
Well, you remember And for this, I would quote or partially refer to things that have been said in Iran by Iranians. You remember very important officials saying, we have all the elements of the puzzle. So when this is said, we were telling them this is unhelpful, or at least you should explain what is meant by that. It's a vast program, all right? And so albeit the physical destruction that has been acted upon these facilities, there's a lot going on. And don't forget something, Margaret, when we talk about centrifuges, when we talk about this kind of facilities, this is an activity that can be relatively, I wouldn't say easily, but it is very possible to reconstruct this effort. Is metallurgy. Yeah. Is a sophisticated washing machine. It's nothing, I mean, and you cannot unlearn what you've learned.
Right, you can't bomb away the knowledge. So that capability will exist after combat
Exactly,
ends.
And it was very sophisticated. Let's not forget, again, referring back to JCPOA. Mm-hmm. JCPOA was based or predicated upon a very primitive type of centrifuge. Now Iran has the most sophisticated, fast and efficient machine that exists, and they know how to make it, and they know. And on top of that, there may be places out there which are not nuclear places. This is why what I say is that we still need to find a framework, an agreed framework that is going to be providing us with the necessary previsibility and sense of a clear idea of where they are, what they want to go.
Because this war will not destroy Iran's nuclear ambitions and capabilities.
I would say any war.
Any war.
Unless it was nuclear war and you go for destruction in an unfathomable way, which we hope, of course, will never be the case.
Well, talk to me about the options that we know are being discussed by the United States right now, including President Trump and Israel have talked about the potential of sending special forces in to secure some of this enriched material. You have been to Isvahan. You have seen some of the underground facilities.
Yes.
How difficult would it be to move these cylinders that are there full of chemicals?
We're talking about cylinders containing gas of highly contaminated uranium hexafluoride at 60%. So it's very difficult to handle. So much so that, for example, in terms of this negotiation, we might perhaps discuss that a little bit, that did not bear fruit. One of the things that we were discussing was downblending it because of its difficulty in terms of handling in the scenario, for example, of a ship out of the material, exfiltrating the material. So it is very difficult. Then, of course, I guess there will be a number of decoys, a number of distracting cylinders, materials over there, which would make it very difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible. I know that here there are incredible military capacities to do that, but it would be a very challenging operation for sure.
For military operation to be carried out. Let me just ask you about one other thing. You've said about half the nuclear material was around Isfahan.
But it's a little bit more. There is, but the majority of the material is there, and this is no secret because I've seen a lot of hype about it. This has been in our reports. The vast majority is there. There is some in Natanz as well, and some other parts.
There's focus on these other undeclared facilities President Trump has brought up. There's a facility called Pickax Mountain, for example, that comes up. Are you concerned about those other sites?
Well, we should visit those. They were not operational, so this is why we hadn't. You may remember that on the eve of the June 2025 campaign, Iran announced that they had a new enrichment facility in Isfahan.
Yes.
On that same day, I issued a request for an urgent inspection, which was granted, and the inspectors were there. And the morning where late night when the attacks happened. So we never got to see the place. We will have to go there eventually.
Final thought here. Do you think President Trump supports what I heard you say, which is that a military campaign cannot destroy Iran's nuclear program, and that the only way to understand what they're really doing is to be on the ground inspecting it, and that can't be done by the United States military fully either?
Well, I think, I don't know whether he would endorse this or not, but he has said also that, of course, diplomacy is the preferred option. I think that is encouraging. And we have had a very constructive conversation in the past and now.
Have you spoken to him?
Not to the president,
Okay.
no. I hadn't had the honor. But I was talking to people that I had been talking in the past, and we continue this effort. I think the essence of this is that in the bleakest hour, we should never lose hope.
You can see our extended conversations on our website and on our YouTube channel.